Okay, I have met another woman who speaks with her coffee mugs. She held up her mug as we met for the first time on Zoom. And Dr. Keira Barr, tell me what your mug says.
It says, woke up sexy as hell again.
And for those of you who are listening to the podcast episode and aren't seeing this on YouTube, the sign behind her says, let's go skinny dipping in what looks like some kind of neon light up pink. And so I'm fully obsessed and committed to this conversation with my new friend who's coming to us from Fox Island, Washington, at the Pacific Northwest, which is one of my bucket list places. Dr. Keira Barr is a board certified dermatologist, and I'm just going to read to you what she wrote on her bio because I think it's stunning. It says, Dr. Keira Barr blends science with soul as an embodiment coach, mind-body medicine practitioner, and dual board certified integrative dermatologist, empowering women around the world with the tools to help them feel more comfortable and confident in their skin. Today, we're talking about redefining skincare. This is not your Sephora skincare. That's her line, not mine. Dr. Keira Barr, welcome to the show, and thanks so much for being here. I'm pumped.
I'm so excited too. I know it's so fun meeting another a love language speaking through our mugs.
I wear mine on t-shirts and in mugs, and that's kind of, just how I communicate.
I love
Anyway. So you're not your mama's dermatologist. You're not the woman who, although you are clearly capable of telling us what we should buy at Sephora, you kind of approach skincare from a different perspective. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think, that saying that your mess becomes your mission. And I really think that that is how this all unfolded, that, I didn't realize, I thought I knew why I went into dermatology. I thought it was because I loved, histology. I'm, my subspecialty is dermpath. I loved, learning about surgery and working with kids and being able to do aesthetics and all the things. And that's really not what I discovered was the reason. What I discovered when someone really pressed me on it, and I realized that as a kid, I was bullied for what was on my skin. And for most of my formative years, I tried to hide in this skin of mine by covering it with suntans and people pleasing and trying to be everything for everyone else. And ultimately, the ultimate most outward manifestation of that as a practicing dermatologist focusing on skin cancer and melanoma was having to diagnose myself with early melanoma. It was the wake-up call that the stress, the unprocessed trauma, all manifests itself as living really uncomfortably in this skin of mine. And I realized, listen, I'm a physician who has all this medical knowledge and all this training, and I didn't know shit from Shinola about what was really happening. And it really led me to pursue this work, really understand the impacts of stress and trauma on the body, and help other women, really reveal what's lying beneath the appearance of their skin and really harness the innate wisdom of the body to liberate the hold that those layers of thoughts and stories and misbeliefs and habituated patterns has created, so that they can find comfort and confidence living in their skin.
Oh my gosh, I got chills and tears and goosebumps, and it's a shitty story to have be the reason that you ended up where you are. From both perspectives, being bullied and being and lacking confidence as a child and a teen, to experiencing a potentially life-threatening diagnosis. That all sucks. And I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. But the beautiful silver lining is that you are here, giving other women the power and information and confidence and encouragement to release all that, because a lot of people have been through similar shit, not necessarily the skin cancer part or the bullying part, but just the overall feeling that you express about not being comfortable in our own skin.
Yeah, it's so hard. In fact, a woman reached out to me this morning, and she's in her 60s, and for the last 20 years she has struggled with the skin condition of just what we would call hyperkeratosis. So I haven't seen the pictures, but it's just an accumulation of skin cells on the skin. And she relayed that there was a lot of stress and trauma at the time. And she's been going to dermatologists and getting things to just topically wipe it off. And she was curious after hearing, me on another podcast, like, could the stress and trauma have anything to do with it? And could I help? I was like, I don't know the details of your story, but there is no doubt in my mind, the mind and the skin are intimately connected, derived from the same layer of embryologic tissue. They're constantly communicating with one another. That this thickening, this reaccumulation of skin is in some way your armor. Whatever you felt like you had to protect yourself from at some point. And granted, there can be many other, factors. It's never just the one thing. But if people have not had, I know you've talked about trauma on this podcast before, right? And trauma isn't necessarily what happened. It's how the experience of what happened landed in your body. And we are wired for survival. So in that moment, your body did whatever it thought it needed to do to keep you safe. And after that event was over, if you didn't have the time, space, permission, or support to complete that stress response cycle, we get held in these patterns. And it just repeats itself over and over again. So the body always feels like it needs to be on high alert, always feels like it might be in danger. And so the beautiful thing is that the bodies are not static. They are not necessarily stuck. We might feel stuck, but we can shift that paradigm. We can move through to another way of being in time, right? It's not quick, but it's possible.
Yeah. And essentially heal from the inside out. So often we talk about finding the root cause, finding what's really going wrong, from a pathophysiology perspective. And we can pinpoint that, yes, this is you as a dermatologist, your specialty obviously is skin and how the body manifests through the skin. But we, typically, if you hear somebody who's had trauma or stress or unrest in their lives, it'll come across as insomnia or anxiety or high blood pressure. And, some of those things pathophysiologically we can measure. We can measure your blood pressure. We can measure your cholesterol. We can see if your weight's going up and down, all as markers of this underlying trauma or stress. And for you, that marker is, one of the markers is how that's coming across in your skin, which we don't even really talk about. And I'm not diminishing it to just the skin, because clearly you approach the whole person, which is not something that you usually hear a specialist doing
in residency. And I'll name, like, to your point, most women, this particular woman had a specific skin issue, but most of the women that come, they do come with exactly what you're talking about. They're just exhausted and they're stressed out. Their hair may be thin. I mostly work with women of my, age, in their 40s, 50s, 60s. And so their hormones have started to decline in the peri and postmenopausal phase of life. They may notice thinning skin, thinning hair, but really it's the loss of sleep. It's the loss of drive, not knowing who they are, what they're doing as they're in these transitions. Their kids are leaving, now they're taking care of their parents. And it's just this overall sense of like internal chaos. Really what it is. And again, it can manifest externally, like very visibly on the skin, but to your point, could be elevated blood sugar, elevated blood pressure, dysregulation of their other hormones, like thyroid hormone particularly.
So when someone has a woman who is going through what you just described, their thought is not, let me go to the dermatologist, let me check in with Dr. Barr and see what she has to say about my turmoil, right? You're a dermatologist, you're a clinically trained skin specialist. So how does your evaluation of a how does someone get to you? Is it through treating their skin and kind of helping them open the door to those conversations and dig deeper? Or is it something else? How does someone arrive at your office or on telemedicine with you as their specialists, helping them work through this?
Yeah, I'll name that my background is as a clinical dermatologist, but I am not practicing as a dermatologist now, right? My role is more of a somatic coach and breathwork facilitator. So how they find me is they have gone to their dermatologist. They have maybe been in talk therapy for years. They've seen functional medicine. They've seen all the people and they've made some progress, but they're still not feeling like themselves. There's something more. There's a few more layers that need to be explored, and that's how they find me. They've done all the things, they've done the mindset work, they've done right. And I think mindset work and thought work is really important, but it misses that connection between the mind and the body. And it's when we drop into the body, right, and understand like what is happening and it's uncomfortable, right? Skinny dipping, very uncomfortable. Most people are not like, yeah, I'll get naked, I'll walk around naked, right? It's very vulnerable to go inside and be present with the uncomfortable emotions and maybe some of the pain and discomfort. But that is where the real shift and transformation comes, and working with someone who can support you through that, because it's really hard to do alone. I mean, I've got a therapist and I have coaches, and it does take a village.
Yeah.
So
When someone identifies that you may be the proper person to help them through this transition or this challenge or this turmoil, what is it that you do with your clients?
yeah, so it varies from person to person, obviously, because I'll name it's not cookie cutter. Everyone may have had similar, it may have landed in their body in similar ways, but everyone has their unique experience and history, and that needs to be treated appropriately. But really, it's a matter of learning the skills of how to essentially be present with what's here through breath work, through mindfulness. I use art, guided visualizations. Really, it's mind body medicine and using various modalities to help really get to that root cause. And it's not a matter of that someone needs to be fixed because they're not necessarily broken. Certainly Western medicine is amazing. Like if you have a broken bone, or we were talking about how we had some spots that we needed to have like removed or biopsied, right? Those things may need to be addressed or quote unquote fixed. But when people come to me, it's not because anything really has gone wrong. So much has gone right, but it's no longer serving where they are right now, right? They don't always need to be in survival mode. So we gently, walk through where they're feeling stuck and equip them with the tools in order to move past that.
And the $1 million question is, as you work through this, does their skin get better?
Yes. So for so many people, and I'll name that, I'm not necessarily currently working with the worst of like psoriasis or significant, as I mentioned, a lot of the women a lot of my clients are in that kind of menopausal transition. And they're noticing like their skin may be drier, they feel, they're exhausted, they're not sleeping, so that then they have the dark circles, they're noticing more fine lines and wrinkles. I mean, if you think about the impact that stress has on the skin, cortisol, if you talk about like, we were talking about anti-aging, right? It's like probably the worst term, but if you're thinking about how do I slow down aging, we need to manage our stress, which goes to affecting our sleep and how we nourish ourselves, all of these things. And once we start doing this work and women really start to feel more comfortable within themselves and kind of wake up to like, oh, now I understand why this is happening. Oh, I can really be more in control of, how I respond and not just be reactive. A lot of the other lifestyle, I know you focus on lifestyle medicine, like it becomes much easier to incorporate some of these lifestyle factors that optimize the functioning of their skin from the inside out. You can't help but start to glow when you're feeling better.
Yeah. I was going to say, you hit the nail on the head. when you feel shitty, you like sit in the muck and you kind of exist in that place that feels unhappy or unhealthy, and indecision or inaction just becomes comfortable, and it can be very, discouraging. It can be very depressing. And then when you start to, I would say, kind of at the core, maybe is just gain the self love and self respect and confidence to acknowledge that you deserve to feel good and that you can feel good. It kind of inspires compliance with whatever the regimen is, whether it's getting good sleep or getting good exercise or having more sex or, visiting with the docs that you need to see, seeing therapists. You want to do more of it because it's like it escalates. You feel better and you want to do more, and you want to then spend more time investing in yourself. And then you start to say, I have a boundary around that. I can't take on that project because I have to go to my therapy or I have to do my exercise. You start to pour more time and energy into yourself, whereas maybe in the past you would have accepted other responsibilities to please other people, because you were in that stuck place feeling like shit. So it's just like it's like this it's like a snowball effect.
Totally. Yeah, yeah, that compound effect. Absolutely. It's so fascinating. And I think the biggest aha moment for so many of the women I've worked with, they're like, oh, I can say no. I can
Mm-hmm.
wait, you're asking me what I want? What?
Yeah.
I don't even know. I know what I don't want.
Yeah.
But I've never contemplated I'm allowed to want something different than what I
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
And I'm allowed to like feel these feelings. Like I think it's just we in many ways have been socialized to believe that so much about ourselves is not okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We need to be quiet. We need to be, especially those of us socialized as women, like if your hair's not done, if you aren't dressed a certain way, maybe you're not as smart, maybe you're not as accomplished. It's like, what does the outside appearance have to do with my capacity
Right.
to accomplish things or be productive? That being said, I think the way we carry ourselves in the world, I always say that skincare is everything we think, feel, and do, right? Because everything you think, feel, and do either affects what directly shows up on your skin or how you show up in it from
Yeah.
a place of feeling, even posture. If
Sure.
we hunch over and shame and lack of self-confidence and self-esteem versus, just rolling our shoulders back. Not like puffing up our chest, but just how we show up in this skin of ours can instantly change how we see ourselves. I mean, I think there's a lot to, Mel Robbins, high five rule, or I think it's giving yourself a high five in the mirror, but it's so true, right?
Yeah.
Like if you look at yourself and really look at yourself, not from a place of contempt and criticism of what is wrong, like, yeah, I'm, noticing there's hooding of my eyelids now, some more wrinkles as I mature. But if I can look past that and be like, wow, those eyelashes are protecting those eyes that have seen sunrises and sunsets and like seeing my daughter off to college, like, right? It changes the whole experience.
Mm. Now, people who are listening are going to be like, this crazy lady's telling me that, the lady down the street's going to get Botox and fillers and, a spray tan. And, she's spending $1 million. She's getting lasers and fat dissolvers and all this stuff. And she looks like $1 million and she's the same age as me. And you're telling me that I just got to do some like self-exploration and I could feel the confidence that she feels. So how do you kind of reconcile, the aesthetics industry with all the self-work? Is it either or? Is it both? For women like us, for me, this kind of confidence came in my late 30s and early 40s. Now I'm sitting in that period of growth that you're talking about, really kind of being able to announce what it is that I want and what it is that I'm willing to do, who I'm willing to be in a relationship with, those kinds of things. But there's still the aging part. And we decided that you and I are creating the anti-aging league where
Totally.
because the anti-aging industry is basically telling us all, you look like hell and you need to look younger. So how do you reconcile that? You know, everyone else around us who's being influenced by what's available and wanting what's available, wanting to look like all the other women, with kind of doing this really deep and maybe difficult, internal work.
Yeah, I think it's such a great question and such an important one. And I truly believe it's yes, and it's both. The challenge with just going down the street to get the filler, the Botox, the cellulite dissolver, and
Whatever's new, whatever's new.
Whatever's new. It costs a shit ton of money. The average, I was looking at their statistics that the average American woman spends over $250,000 on her appearance in her lifetime. And granted, it's older data, but that Dove study that showed that 94% of women do not feel beautiful. What? Disconnect.
Yeah, clearly it's not
What's
working.
the return on that investment?
Right.
So I am not, for the most part, not anti anything other than other people's trying to tell me that I should be anti who and what I am. I am an aging woman. I just had another birthday. I am grateful that I am aging. I do not want to be anti-aging. Through lifestyle choices and maybe there's some products that can facilitate that. We can slow down accelerated aging, right? We know that sleep is critical. We know that the food that we eat is critical in terms of contributing to rejuvenating our skin. But for me, it's the lens through which I'm making the decision to have the procedure. I'll name I've had Botox, I've had filler. And there are studies that have shown the benefits of Botox in depression, not for frozen, but for softening the angry 11s, right? If you look in the mirror and you are just scowling and you've got that resting bitch face and you're just looking at yourself and you're just beating yourself up, that's going to perpetuate that negative cycle, activate that stress response constantly and make you feel crappy.
Yeah.
Now, if you can soften those lines a little bit, relax them a little bit when you look in the mirror, it's a kinder, softer countenance that maybe it's an invitation to be like, oh, you're looking pretty good today. Yeah. Maybe I can look past the wrinkles and like really celebrate, those laugh lines that were from decades of just enjoying life, right? And so I think it's just about what is your reason for getting those procedure. If you're getting that procedure because you're like, I'm going to look like Susie Q down the block and look like $1 million, and then people will love me, I'll be happier, I'll find a loving relationship, I'll have success in my career. I'm sorry. The likelihood that that's going to happen is small. But if you have done some inner work and you're like, you know what? I love who I am. I want to celebrate that by enhancing my assets. And, like my mug says, wake up sexy as hell again. And to do that, I'm like, maybe I need a little zhuzh. Great. You're not looking for that procedure to be the answer to all the challenges and obstacles that you haven't been able to work through before. Yeah. It's going to be an enhancement, right? You're not looking for it to be the solution. Because then the return on your investment will be so much higher because you're doing it from a place of like, I love who I am and I want more of me. So yeah, a little zhuzh feels good.
For sure. I mean, I absolutely adore that you said that you feel grateful to be aging and put a different spin on, like, you're here, you're seeing another year. And then I have tears in my eyes because you said Susie Q down the road. My mom, Susie, passed away at age 57 and, had a lot of self-confidence issues her whole life. And, what she would give and what I would give and what we would give to have her age, to have her be older, regardless of whatever skin she was in. I mean, she was beautiful, but she saw a lot of flaws in herself, so just the fact that to say very simply that I am here and I get to age. It's not something that every woman gets to do. And then to be able to say, I can age gracefully with or without Botox, with or without filler, or, with or without the baggage of that old relationship, to be able to do that and to move forward is a privilege that not everyone has.
Yeah.
So I think it's beautiful that you expressed gratitude that we're here and that we are aging and that we're able to age. And I love the idea of canceling the term anti-aging. But that's a hard thing to do when we live in the world that we live in, where media is such an influence. And it's especially hard for those of us who have young kids and who are seeing the world tell them that they may not be pretty enough. They may not, they're not skinny enough, or that they need to look like Kylie Jenner, who pumps millions of dollars into her face every year and her body. So how do you talk to those younger girls who we're trying to get them to accept and thrive in the skin that they're in, when everything in the world around them is telling them to be something different or better or more?
Yeah, I think it's a challenge for sure.
Yeah.
And a couple of years ago, I actually did a workshop when my daughter was in middle school. She now is a freshman in college, but I did a workshop for girls essentially for this. It was called Cracking the Beauty Code, right? And it was really it was basically lifestyle medicine in a way, talking about nutrition. And it's not just what you eat, but really your why and how, right? What is the reason? What are we really hungry for? Our basic human needs are to feel seen, heard, valued, and to feel safe, right? How do we find that? Through connection. Most importantly, connection to ourselves. Most of us, when we look at those images, and listen, I watch myself even, feel, I'm looking at things and I have my moments, but I watch my teenagers scroll social media, they're in a great mood, and then it just plummets as they're just comparing and despairing. And it's not just our girls. My son, teenage son, he was being targeted. And one day he was all like glum. I was like, "What, dude, what's going on?" And he finally came clean that like on his Instagram feed, he was getting all these, ads for things like with guys with ripped 6-pack abs. And he's like, "I'm just not strong. I'm just not like them." I'm like, "Oh, nobody is immune. Nobody's safe." Like everyone's getting targeted. But I think it comes back to, being grounded in who we truly are, which is really hard. But I think what is important to us, what feels good, and knowing that even if you looked like a Kylie Jenner, who without the filler, gorgeous woman, with the filler, like I'm not judging anyone who uses any products or procedures. But if you were to look exactly like her, get all those procedures, would you feel better? The answer is likely no. So I think we're just doing a disservice of externalizing our worth and our value when what we really are all craving is just to be seen as we are and connect, most importantly, to ourselves, and then create connection with other people.
Beautiful. I love it. You mentioned the thoughts around, the thoughts or beliefs that we all hold, that we will be more valued if we are more whatever, prettier, skinnier, richer, drive a better car, more successful, whatever that fill in the blank is. And or so-and-so may value me more, or I might be more respected, or I might become more successful if I were fill in the blank. And those are not thoughts that we necessarily consciously say to ourselves, but they're definitely beliefs that drive our behaviors. They're definitely, maybe feelings that we have that are making us do some things that we don't even necessarily want to do. If you're going to the gym every day, not because you want to be healthy and live longer, but because you want a slimmer waist and a bigger booty, which I can't even believe I'm saying now. I'm so grateful that big booties are in style because I have one. the wave, vibe does not make me feel like I'm, seen or valued. But if you're, like you said, if your why, if your motivation for, you're not saying that in your brain, I'm going to go to the gym so that I can have a smaller waist so that I can be valued more. But these are the beliefs and the thoughts that we have unknowingly, a lot of times, subconsciously, and it's driving our behaviors. Maybe causing us to do some things that are more harmful than good, and still not getting us the results that we want, that we're more valued, we're more successful, we're more connected. So it's just interesting that you bring that up, those kind of thoughts that direct our beliefs and our actions.
Yeah. And I think it all stems back to, those basic human needs that were not met at some point in our lives. So we do these things, especially most of it happens in our young childhood. I'm a parent. I started my kids' therapy fund like when they were like babies. I was like, I know I'm gonna F you up. Like, it's just, I'm not intentionally, but listen, I got my own stuff. And I wish I knew then what I know now, because I definitely would have done things differently, but I'm grateful because I'm watching my teenagers evolve into these beautiful humans who still struggle, but like not in the same way. But because we didn't get these basic needs of being seen, valued, and maybe felt safe when we were younger, we now are looking for all the ways that we can fill those needs. I think especially those of us, socialized as women, the people pleasing and the overworking, and especially those of us in medicine, right? The overworking, always saying yes, kind of saying yes to work and like saying no to our family because we need to be seen as trustworthy and respectable and successful. But like, what is the measure of success? At the end of the day, so many of us feel, burnt out and empty and unfulfilled because we're looking outside of ourselves as a way to fill and meet those needs. But it's then kind of doing that inner work. And this is when I work with people, we go through this process of kind of not getting stuck in the story, but understanding where some of these patterns came from, at what age, and really in many ways forgiving ourselves for buying into the misbelief that we weren't good enough.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. I feel like you're my like West Coast soul sister, because I could hear myself saying the same things that you're saying. And what I especially loved about what you said just now was that, that we buy into other people's, what we think other people think of us. And we think that that's fact, instead of really truly evaluating what it is that we feel will make us successful, or thinking like, how do I want to be perceived? How would I want, someone else to describe me? If you said, how would you like someone to describe you? I doubt somebody's going to be like, I want you to say that I'm beautiful and I'm skinny and I have great boobs. And like, that's not what you're going to say. You're going to say you want people to think you're funny and fun and adventurous and kind and loving. Those are what if you answered that question, that's probably the response you'd get. That's probably even the response you'd get from a teenager, believe it or not. But the thoughts that then what they're exposed to, and the thoughts that they think, and the feelings that they feel, and the beliefs that they believe, are that someone else's opinion of them should be that they're beautiful and they're fit and they, are high achieving. And so it's crazy. And I love how you talk about like, how would I define success? Like what would make me a success? Is it that I'm, that I don't have wrinkles? Or is it that, I have a loving relationship? Is it that I'm, have a big butt, or that my patients really feel like I help them, and that I derive tremendous personal satisfaction from helping my patients? There's a crazy thing there. So let's talk for a second about how we talk to kids, especially, our teenagers, and maybe how we even talk to ourselves. They think we don't hear us. They think, oh God, it's my mother, she's telling me I'm, doing a great job again, blah, 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 blah. We make it a point in our homes almost, we try to be, as consistent as possible, not to mention their appearance at all. It's something they have no control over. It's something they'll be praised for and picked on for. And they have no control over it. So we try as much as possible to not say, oh, you look thin. Oh, you look great. Oh, don't eat this, don't eat that. Or you should eat more of this or more of that. We really try to not talk about appearance at all. I don't even say like, you look great today, because I don't care what she looks like. You know what I mean? But they are listening and they do hear us. So if we're gonna kind of talk to our kids in a way that promotes their kind of exploration of what's really important and who they really want to be, how they want to portray themselves in the world, how can we start? How do we start those conversations? What can we say? Is it like a sit down thing where we're like, all right, we're going to talk about, who you want to be and how you put yourself out there in the world? Or is it, kind of like sliding in there, those little things, those little moments?
I think it's like this, both and, for instance, like my daughter just texted me, so she just started college and she wrote a piece for her campus paper, and it was all about sleep tips, talk about lifestyle, right?
Nice.
And this is our kids are listening. So I was talking about like blocking out the blue light and getting good sleep. So she's been doing that, and so she wrote the tips for getting off digital and like making your bed like a sanctuary. I was so proud of her, right? So it gets published on the front page of her school paper, but then it's a national organization. So then it gets published like nationally. So she's super excited, right? She's a freshman. This is amazing. And she texts me, she says, I'm so excited, but I'm also worried that I don't physically feel well and I've got to get dressed up and I need to look cute. And I'm all worried about this. It's like the appearance and what it was overshadowing all of this. And I kind of just snuck it in there. I was like, feel into that excitement. Like, where do you feel that in your body? Can you just breathe into that? She's like, yeah. I'm like, all right. So let's just check in with the nervous. Where is that? Well, it's still in my, all right. And we just kind of go back and forth. And if she can lean just a little bit more into the excitement than into the worry and the concern, it loosens, it lightens, it naturally dissipates. So sometimes it's just a matter of just like being with them and really, again, getting out of their head and into their body and showing them that they have control over what's happening inside of them. Can't control the external, can't control social media, can't control but it's that experience of what is happening that they have some control over. Now, my son, on the other hand, is all about, I think, question. I used to just like talk at my kids. And now it's really just being really curious about what excites them. What do they see as success? What is it about this? How does that feel? Like, and sometimes I'll name that my kids are like, stop life coaching me, or stop, I'm not. And I'm like, listen, I'm not. I'm treating you like a human being.
Yeah.
And because our basic, like, we all want to be, belong, and we all need connection. We are wired for connection. And that's all I'm trying to do, is help you connect to yourself. And I'm trying to connect to you right now.
And in a world where they will be treated unkindly, they'll hear us,
Totally.
giving them that, those kind of like prompts, when they're faced with decisions, whether or not they tell us, they'll hear us in the, in the little, as like the little voice or the little, angel on their shoulder, helping them make decisions. What's interesting though about the conversation we're having in this bigger topic, and then kind of narrowing it down to how we help our kids grow into accepting the skin and the body and the person that they are, is that, I tell them to do things that I don't do myself. So it's almost as if becoming a parent of teenagers, a teenage girl in particular. My son is not quite there yet, but has forced me to be kinder to myself, because I don't want to ever have them hear me talking about myself in ways that I would not want them to talk about themselves. So it's interesting. It's almost like they're the teachers,
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think our children are our greatest teachers because they mirror. When they lash out, why are they lashing out? Is it because I have lashed out, right? My habituated pattern of being?
Yeah.
Was it because I wasn't listening? I wasn't present and I wasn't hearing what they really needed or wanted, right? And so it's constantly just this, like, constantly, I mean, those of us, who are professionals, like doctors, like, we are voracious learners, and like having kids is like the toughest education that happens on a daily basis, but it's an
Really?
opportunity for our own growth. Yeah, I mean, my daughter will say things to me, I'm like, dang girl, that is so wise. Like, how did
Yeah.
you? She's like, well, yeah, I mean, they are listening,
Yeah.
right? And they are mirroring, but also they're walking their walk sometimes better than we're walking ours. And it's just a good reminder.
Yeah,
Just to,
for sure.
yeah.
I have so much faith in like this generation of kids in particular. I don't know, maybe obviously everybody wants their generation to do better, but I really feel like they have their heads on straight. I feel like they know right from wrong. They know what's good. They know how to say what they want. They know that they don't have to go and get a job behind a desk and be there for 50 years if that's not what they want. They can go and start their own business. They have somehow this language and this confidence that I didn't know anybody, at their age. When I was their age, I didn't have that, and I didn't know how to say that, and I didn't know anybody else who did. I don't know if maybe every generation feels this, but I just feel like these kids, they have their shit together, and I'm convinced they're going to save the world. They're going to save, humanity. I really do have a lot of faith in them. And it's exciting to see. I mean, I know that there are horrible things happening out there, and that not everyone is in a position to thrive. But I just see so much good in them, and they have taught me so much that it's hard not to feel that way.
Yeah.
So.
It's a yes. And I agree on that on so many levels. And yet, because of social media, because
Yeah.
of the things that they have been exposed to, that I did not have to be in such a fishbowl
Yeah.
at their stage of life, and the texting and not necessarily speaking and communicating. There are some things that I do worry about, right? We are wired for connection, clear communication, asking for
That's true.
what we want, and sometimes things get lost in translation through a Snapchat, through a text, which is how most of them are communicating. So I think together we can we can help and be a support to give them that time, space, and permission to evolve some of the skills that they will need to truly thrive. But I am with you on, like, they just see things differently. Like, what was not even on the radar, it's like anything is possible for them.
It's true. And it's a great point. I will they'll show me something on their social media feed. Now when I look at mine, I see a whole bunch of like normal looking women, because that's what I follow. I see women who have normal bodies, and women who are in perimenopause, and all the topics that are of interest to me, and all of the people that I want to watch and learn from and be inspired by. And that's just not what their feed looks like. It really is. So sometimes I'm like, oh my God, look, there's normal people out there. And then, on their feed, it's like Gigi Hadid and like all these, picture perfect, impossible, to compare to people who, and that's what they're looking at all the time. So it's a great point that you bring up. That's kind of like the alternate side. Oh my gosh. I'm like drained. I feel like I could talk to you all day about this. Since you're the dermatologist, and I promised that this was going to be about skincare, which clearly it was. Aside from obvious sleep, hydration, stress management, good diet, enough exercise, enough sunlight, enough fun and sex and spiritual connectedness, and all the good stuff that we talk about in lifestyle medicine, what is the menopause regimen, the perimenopause regimen? What is the graceful aging regimen for the stuff that we can do for our skins to help us age healthily?
Yeah, I think number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 is like all the things that you said. I think the top things are sleep, which can be really challenging heading into that perimenopause, postmenopausal phase of life, right? Because hot flashes for some people, but that's where looking at stress and diet can be huge. Like we all love our, glass of wine, but we know that alcohol is really going to mess with your sleep, especially if you're drinking, a glass of wine with dinner. Those hot flashes may amp up. Sleep is going to be disrupted. Stress, melatonin peaks in the evening, which is one of the most potent antioxidants that your body can produce for skin rejuvenation, skin cell turnover. It'll jack up your cortisol. Your melatonin and your cortisol are intimately related. So as melatonin isn't being produced in high levels, your cortisol spikes, and that's going to trigger those oil glands to secrete more oil and cause breakouts, or it's going to accelerate breakdown of your collagen and your elastin, increasing fine lines, wrinkles. And so again, the basics are so important. What we eat, again, I'm not dogmatic about the style of eating. I really focus on your why and your how. Like, why are you going to the fridge? I know that like when I'm stressed, like I pop up out of my chair, I'm like, oh, my first instinct is like to go to the pantry. And then I'm like, no, Keira. That's just your habituated pattern. Like just be with whatever is here right now. And then slowing down and mindfully like just savoring that flavor, just feeling it on your tongue and just smelling the foods, the textures. I kid you not, like I lost 10 pounds. My clients have lost weight without changing their diet, literally just focusing on my why and my how. That has made a huge difference in skin tone, texture. But if you're really looking if people really want products, right? You want to go to Sephora. I like, going like places like Credo that have like clean brands and such. But you don't need a 21-step skincare routine. I think that's BS. That's just a lot of money.
Thank you.
That's a lot of money. You need to clean your face. And I always say, listen, if you're ideally it's twice a day. But if you are like, listen, I don't got time for that. Clean your face at night. You get all the gunk, all the air pollution, because air pollution is second behind UV radiation for causing skin damage and contributing to discoloration and hyperpigmentation of the skin. Blue light is like number 3. So you clean your face. Ideally an antioxidant serum with at least vitamin C, vitamin E. There's some other, antioxidants, but those are the top 2 that have been studied the most, and synergistically they work better than either alone. So an antioxidant serum with vitamin C, vitamin E, and then sunscreen daily. A tinted moisturizer with sunscreen SPF 30 or above because of that blue light. The iron oxide in the tinted sunscreen is going to block out the blue light, which has been shown in studies to accelerate aging and hyperpigmentation. So cleanse, antioxidant serum, daily tinted moisturizer with sunscreen, and then a topical product that can accelerate skin cell turnover, like a topical retinoid. Now, as we are heading into our more mature age, like our microbiome is changing, the pHs of our skin may be changing, and so our skin may be a little bit more sensitive. So we may not be able to tolerate a topical retinoid daily. So maybe it's once or twice a week, or a more gentle product like a bakuchiol, which in head-to-head studies had similar efficacy as a topical retinoid, but was tolerated better, less irritation, and also not concerned if you're in the younger set and still fertile and are looking to have kids or are pregnant. Bakuchiol has been found to be, safe there too. So 3 products, at most 4 products, and you're done.
I want to be your client. I know that everyone who's listening wants to be your client. So before we go, I'm sad to have to have this end. Honestly, we've gone way over, but please let my listeners know where we can find you and contact you if we want to work with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not as consistent on social, but on Instagram, I'm at Dr. Keira Barr. My website is going to be going through kind of a makeover, but they can still find me because I do offer, complimentary consultation to see if, doing this type of work would be beneficial for people. So that's drkirabarr.com.
Okay. And together you and I make up the anti-aging league.
I love it.
Versus,
East Coast, West Coast, we got the country covered.
versus the neon let's go skinny dipping club. I'm all in. I so appreciate you.
We are just daring to bear all. We're gonna do it.
That'll be one with video, with audio, no visual.
Come on now.
All right.
We can keep it, PG.
I need to do some mindset work before we get there. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay.